Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Ehonia Obed, and welcome to Startup Experiment Diary. This is the show where I dig into successful companies to uncover the real experiments and decisions that drove their growth. Not the sanitized success stories, but the actual nuts and bolts of how they figure things out. Today, I'm taking apart Notion. I am a big customer for them. If I say big, I'm still on the free plan anyway. But what I discovered about their 95% organic growth rate sounds almost impossible. Okay, so I went down this rabbit hole last week trying to figure out how Notion actually grew in the early days. And what I found completely blew my mind because it's nothing like what I personally expected. I always assumed that they had some brilliant marketing strategy or they possibly raised a ton of money early on. But when I started digging into interviews with the founders and early employers, I discovered they were literally eating noodles in Japan because they were so broke. Yeah, that's what I discovered. And yet somehow they went from that to millions of users with almost no paid marketing. So I had to understand what the hell actually happened. Look, I'm obsessed with these early growth stories because as founders, we are always trying to figure out what actually works, right? And there's so much conflicting advice out there. But what caught my attention about Notion was this. Everyone talks about their beautiful design and great products, which is true. As I said, I use Notion and I love it. But nobody really explains how they got their first million users. At least that's something I didn't find easily. Like, how do you go from zero to viral without spending millions on ads, especially when you were at the brink of bankruptcy? So I spent way too much time that I would want to even admit this week reading old founder interviews, digging through early blog posts, and trying to piece together what really happened in those crucial early years for Notion. So here's what I found. Back in 2015, Notion had already been around for about a year and it was not going well. From the story, it was not going well at all. Like, really not going well. Ivan Zhao, the CEO, had been pretty open about this in interviews. He says their first versions were buggy and confusing. They burned through their money so fast they had to lay off everyone on their team. Everyone. But here's the part that got me. Instead of giving up or pivoting to something completely different, Zhao and his co-founder Simon moved to Kyoto in Japan. Not for some spiritual journey or anything romantic like that. Literally because it was the cheapest place they could afford to live while rebuilding the product. I found this detail in an old interview where the CEO mentions they were living off instant nodules and rewrote their code 4 times. 4 times. Can you even imagine the mental state you have to be in to keep going after that many failures, especially when it comes to building a software? So after all that rebuilding, they launched Notion 1.0 on product hands in March 2016. Now they got lucky here. Luck underlined because Navar Ravikant posted it from his account, which definitely helped with some form of credibility. But here's what interesting: it became the number one product of the month. It then 2 years later, they did Notion 2.0, which also got over 4,400 upvotes and even got covered by Wall Street Journal. But as I was reading about these launches, I kept thinking, okay, that's great for initial buzz, but how do you sustain growth after that? Product hunt launches are nice, I must admit, but they don't build long-term momentum. So how do you keep that long-term momentum going? And that's when I stumbled across something that I think most people miss when they talk about Notion's growth story. So while I'm digging through all this research, I find out they quietly launched a referral program around 2017. Users could earn credits and remove block limits by inviting friends. But here's what caught my attention, and this is where it gets clever. The product itself was designed to encourage sharing. Any page could be made public. So users were naturally showcasing their wikis, project boards, whatever they built. And if they showcase it, others could easily find it. And through that, they would convert all those other people into new users. And then I found this interview with Ashki Kotari, one of the co-founders, where he mentions that early users wouldn't build from scratch. So what did the team do? The team started creating templates, as in they created pre-built wikis, tax boards, that kind of thing, But wait, it gets even better. Right? When reading about Notion, it's really interesting. So I also came across Kamel Rackets, their first head of marketing, said something in an interview that made me stop and reread it 3 times. She called templates the game changer for them and said instead of promoting Notion's brand, they started highlighting users who were building cool stuff. Now think about that for a second. They literally let their users do the marketing for them. I believe that's genius, right? But here is where it gets really interesting. I found this interview where Ricketts talks about how they built their community, and it's completely different from what you'd expect. They didn't build some fancy community platform or hire a big community team. Instead, they just observed. Like, who does that? Who does that in this startup journey? They just observe. They found existing Slack groups, Reddit communities, Facebook groups where people were already talking about Notion, and they joined them. I love this because it's so counterintuitive to everything we are told about building community, right? Like everyone says, you need to create your own platform and control that community experience for your users. But then they did something even smarter. They identified 20 power users, people who were already talking about Notion all the time. Then what they did was to invite these people into a private Slack group. Then, the goal of inviting them was not to pitch them on anything, but to interview them and understand why they were so passionate about the product. The answer? These people wanted to meet each other and even host events. So Notion created an ambassador program, but not the typical here's some money kind. They gave these people early access to features, direct contact with their engineers, the ability to actually influence the product. That's what they gave these people. Now, this is where the story gets really wide. May 2020, Notion made a decision that honestly, I'm not sure I would have had a gut to make such a decision if I was in their shoes. They dropped the 1,000 block limit on their free plan, completely removed it. Do you realize what this means? Like, they made their free tier as powerful as their $5 per month paid plan. They literally gave away their main value proposition. When I first read this, I thought that has to be a mistake. Why would you do that? Like, why would you cannibalize your own revenue? Every SaaS playbook tells you to limit your free tier to drive upgrades. Is that not what we learn? You read every story and every lesson that the gurus are sharing out there, and that is exactly what they tell us to do. But check out what happened in Notion's case. Their revenue went from $3 million in 2019 to $13.3 million in 2020. Then $31 million in 2021. Can you guess what their revenue was by 2023? Starting from 3 million in 2019, 13.3 million in 2020, then 31 million in 2021. So in a space of 2 years, from 2021 to 2023, if you do the maths, where do you think they would be? Interestingly, by 2023, they were doing $240 million. Can we then say that gamble, I call it gamble because I can't wrap my head around doing that, like giving almost everything for free. That gamble really worked in their favor, and I think I understand why now. But I'm curious what you guys also think. What do you think? Drop a comment if you have any sort of theories about this approach of making your free tiers so liberal and almost close to your paid tier worked magic for them. If you have any theories, go ahead and drop it in the comment. Okay, so here are the numbers that made my jaw drop. September 2019, they had 1 million users. 2019 September, 1 million users. October 2021, this is like in 2 years intervals, they have 20 million users. From September 2019. Nowadays, when you talk about some of these numbers, they are not too intriguing because the likes of ChatGPT and the new AI boom is making this look as if it is normal. But think about it. 2019, you have 1 million users, a million users, and you get in 2 years, you go from 1 million to 20 million users. I think the crazy part is that I had to double check this because it seemed too good to be true. But 95% of their growth was organic. 95%. Can you imagine that? Like you didn't pay any ads, you didn't put money in ads to make up to 95% of these numbers that you are making. So I personally found the story about how they launched Notion in South Korea in 2020, and it was amazing. So what I found was that they are ambassadors that they had created, and not the Notion's marketing team. Actually, they are community ambassadors. We're the ones who hosted a launch live stream, and this had over 8,000 people watching. Think about that. The community of users who were so excited about a product localization that they organized their own launch event with thousands of attendees. When has that ever happened? Like, I don't know if I haven't read it anywhere where something like that happened, especially when they are not being paid to do what they are doing. And it made me realize that this wasn't just growth hacking or clever marketing. This was something completely different, like a flywheel where each part made the next part stronger. So I've been trying to wrap my head around why this worked so well, and I think I've identified a few key things, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. First, they solved what I'm calling the blank page problem. Instead of expecting users to figure out everything from scratch, they gave them templates and examples to start with immediately. Second, they treated their community as a learning engine, not just a marketing channel. They genuinely wanted to understand why people loved the product so much. Third, this might be like the most important one, if I should say. They made sharing completely frictionless. Users could make pages public, share templates, showcase their work. The product itself encouraged viral behavior. But I think there is something deeper here. Most companies try to control their message and their brand, but Notion did the exact opposite of that. They trusted their users to be better marketers than they could ever be. I mean, that's what the story tells us. Look, I'm still processing all of this, but here's what I'm thinking about for my own projects. What if instead of trying to convince people to use our products, we focus on making them so useful that people can't help but share them? What if we give away more value instead of trying to get everything behind paywalls? And what if we trusted our users to know better than what we do about how we talk about our own products? I mean, Notion's head of marketing literally celebrated when users quit their jobs to build templates full time. Let us sink in. She saw that as a win, not a competition. That takes a completely different mindset than most of us have. Trust me. I don't know if every business can replicate exactly what Notion did, but I think the principles are worth experimenting with. Anyway, that's what I found when I went down the Notion rabbit hole. I'm probably missing some pieces of the puzzle, and I'd love to hear if you've discovered other parts of their story that I missed. Have you tried any community-led growth strategies in your own projects? What worked? What didn't? Drop a comment and let me know. I'm always looking for more stories to dig into. And if you are into these kinds of startup deep dives, subscribe, because I'm planning to do more of these. This is going to be episodic, where every day I'm going to try my best to release one episode. So every day for the next, at least the next 100 days, I'm taking 100 different companies, including startups, unicorns, scale ups, any company that has something interesting to teach us. Then I'm going to dive into them to help us understand what's any strategy that they've implemented, or even the ones that failed. We're going to analyze all of them, and I'm going to be posting them here. So thanks a lot for going down this rabbit hole with me, and I hope to see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also share in the comments any other startup or company that you want me to analyze, and I'll be happy to take them on in subsequent videos. Until the next video, I'd say bye for now.